Hey folks, so today we will talk about the personal knowledge graphs and time. So in my previous videos, I described you how we could track the time in the scope of the knowledge graphs and from the simple model where we had the snapshots to the streaming of events that actually work like in resourcing and event sourcing and actually create the graph on fly and all those things. So they all have some pros and cons and benefits. You could take a look to my previous videos. But why the dynamic graph and temporal graph is so important, and especially so important in a constant context of the artificial intelligence powered applications and so on, because when you take a look to the different types of the AI application memory models, they usually separate the facts that represented by the knowledge graph from the episodic memory that are more time dependent. And people have a lot of models that tackle this. So somebody just store this temporal information separately and use it as an enrichment for the graph of facts and all of the things. So it's simple model. People understand it. Some people just inject the episodic information to the knowledge graph that you have some nodes in a knowledge graph actually that represent the episode and the data entity itself, but it's make your graph not homogeneous, and sometimes it's hard to operate with such things. And actually it's quite philosophical question how we should see the time in our events, because even the fact could have the time dependent. What I mean that, for example, your current company where you're working could change over the time, or your teammates could change over the time. A lot of facts like your position, your skills, and all other things. So even the facts actually are dynamic and time dependent. And in this case, the dynamic knowledge graphs with the concept of the validity, when you combine together the value with the time interval, actually looks pretty much interesting and simple to operate, but maybe complex to store, because such structures could be quite huge and create big footprints, and maybe some databases that have this time traveling and structural sharing could be quite interesting for such type of data, but it's not fitting, for example, some LibSQL or some SQLite. So that's the databases that, like the CoachDB, for example, they used these vectors to actually persist some complex sharing, structural sharing information. So, as I said, that even the facts are the time dependent, but in a space of the personal knowledge graph where we capture some information that matter to user, we have slightly different type of the events, and it's a life event or lifespan. Yeah, so something that happens with you that really matter to you, and it's not episodic. It's something that your biography or the life story, and there we're not so interested in a concrete timestamp. We're more interested in a partial ordering. Yeah, so how these life events actually impact each other, how they appear and interfere with each other, and how they form your lifespan. And there we have some kind of time that is not really the timestamps. And we could borrow something from the decentralized distributed system when you have ephemeral time that represented by event counter, like a Lamport clock, that you could not rely on the local clock in a system, and then you invent some integer that are artificial and when some event appear, you increment the integer and you distribute these integers when you communicate with some other systems. And if they see this timestamp, they update their own timestamp by incrementing own counter to the value that they get from u plus 1. And it's mean that you have decentralized common understanding of partial ordering that you could use as a time. And actually, it's quite close to how we as humans treat the life events, because sometimes you have this feeling that you have a lot of months that nothing happens in your life and you don't even remember them. But if you have something emotional, quite intensive, a lot of things that happens, then you have completely different feeling of the time. And this artificial time that based more on the how often the events appear, how they affect each other, could be quite interesting concept of the time in a personal knowledge graphs. And I guess that we need a different treatment for the different thing, because we could have some episodes, we could have something like notes and reminders that really have something like next Wednesday I go to the doctor and all those things. And for the lifetimes we could borrow something from the decentralized systems that do the Lamport clocks or the hybrid clock that combine actually both of the worlds. They have the timestamp, but for the conflict resolution they have the incremented integer, and you have the both things. Or you could have some kind of the vectorized clocks that close to embeddings, but in the decentralized system the vector clock represent the different nodes, and every node have the position in a vector clock. But in a personal knowledge graphs we could have some special embedding or special vector that have the increments for the events in some particular domain or particular areas or in some particular characteristics. And then we could even do the vector search based on this time scale embeddings. And it's yet another interesting concept of the time that we could apply to the personal knowledge graphs. So as you see, the time is quite wide topic, and the notion of the time and notion of the partial order of the events and partial order of how the information appear in our memory and how it's fade out from our memories. Actually, it's quite a big topic of the research in a personal knowledge graph space, and we don't have the simple answer to it. And for sure, we need to have this representation of the knowledge together with the temporal information that our LLMs and machine learning models will understand well. And it's a big challenge itself, because we could not operate with some super abstract things. So as you see, time, it's not so easy. The modeling of the memory in the personal graphs is yet another challenge. But if you're doing something in this space, just let me know. Let's brainstorm together, and maybe we could model something quite cool and interesting in future. So that's all that I was keen to share with you, and see you next time. Choose.